Plot versus theme. Each slide has an audio. Look for the speaker, click, and listen. Key differences: plots, themes. Plots are lengthy and simply describe stories, what happens in the stories. They're shaped by causal connections, historical, social, and personal, the interaction between characters, the juxtaposition of events. Essentially, that's about it. The big ideas, the important events. Themes are often short and can be said in one sentence. They are relationships between the stories and life. They are the bigger ideas that extend to life outside the narrative in connection with the human condition. They are inferred, rarely stated. And readers and viewers infer the theme based on clues the stories provide. Here are two examples. Plot: what happened? A boy moves to a new apartment. He's worried about missing his friends. Frog leaves a note for Toad, telling him he's spending some time alone. Toad's feelings are hurt, and he goes to find Frog. So what's the theme? What's the big idea? Here are three. It had to be hard to change. Sometimes we worry when we don't need to. Sometimes friends need space, but they still want to be our friends. There are 4 stages of plot: exposition, complications, climax, and resolution. Exposition sets the story in motion. It establishes the scene, introduces major characters, and suggests the major events or conflicts to come. Complications: crisis situations that occur throughout the story. Often this is called rising action. Climax is the point of greatest tension or importance. Resolution is the final stage of the plot that draws the action to a close and accounts for all remaining loose ends. Often the end of the story is indefinite or lacks closure. This lack of resolution mirrors the complexity of life, where closure rarely occurs. The stages of plot is often referred to as the narrative arc. In the previous slide, we went over 4 stages. Sometimes people argue there are 5 stages, so we have 5 stages illustrated here. The exposition, that's the build-up of the story. Maybe it's chapter 1 of the novel, maybe it's the first 5 minutes of a film. Then you have the rising action, where you start to have tension occur. Without tension, without conflict, you have no story. At the highest point of tension, you have the climax. We're about to find out who the murderer is. Who is the murderer? That's the climax. The falling action: he's arrested, he's taken to jail, hires an attorney. The resolution, often called the dénouement, which is French for tying up the loose ends. Maybe he goes to jail, maybe he doesn't go to jail. Depends on the story. Now let's talk about theme. The theme is the central or dominant idea. It's not just a plot summary. It conveys the values and ideas expressed by the story. The general idea that extends beyond the story and applies to the world outside of fiction. It's revealed through titles, symbols, conflicts, and character statements and changes. We have an example here from the text Borowski's Silence. The theme could be that humans have a strong need for vengeance, or that silence is sometimes the only response possible when people confront unspeakable horrors. So I want you to stop a minute and think about which answer best illustrates the theme in the examples below. Edgar Allan Poe's The Cask of Amontillado is about a man who has an obsessive desire for revenge. Poe's The Cask of Amontillado suggests that when the desire for revenge becomes obsessive, it can deprive individuals of all that makes them human. Of these two examples, which one tells the plot and which one tells the theme? Hopefully you saw that the second example was an illustration of theme. One clue is the verb suggest. That's an active verb. It's making an argument that Poe is making an argument. Poe's The Cask of Amontillado suggests that when the desire for revenge becomes obsessive, it can deprive individuals of all that makes them human. This is kind of a universal argument. It's not directly tied to the story. This is something about the human condition outside the story, about revenge and what makes us human. Typical themes may include these universal topics. First, you have a journey. This is very common universal theme. It's usually some kind of growth, maybe a spiritual coming of age. We can see this in Luke Skywalker. He comes from the planet Tatooine, looks very deserty. Then he goes on a journey. He gets training by Yoda to become a Jedi Knight. It's at this point that he becomes a man. This is called a coming of age story. Another theme. In German, they refer to it as the Bogensroman. Of course, with the coming of age, there's a loss of innocence. Then you have the noble sacrifice. So loss of innocence, he finds out Darth Vader is his father. He joins the Rebel Alliance, and he's trying to defeat the evil empire. And to do so, he's willing to sacrifice his life. Ends up sacrificing his hand instead. Another theme is the great battle in which a great enemy is trying to kill or hurt the protagonist. Again, we can refer to Luke Skywalker. Another theme might be fall from grace, trying to be God, ending his misfortune, like in Frankenstein. So fall from grace. Very common, especially in plays. You have the hero. The hero at some point has a great fall. Love and friendship, that's another theme, Romeo and Juliet. Fate, good or bad. Revenge. Trickery, like we have in Little Red Riding Hood. So thinking about themes. This semester, think about the stories and which have related or similar themes, which have contrasting themes. Later this semester, we'll have an essay in which you'll be asked to compare and contrast two works and elaborate on those findings.